Hello, dear first year students. Today we are here to discuss Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, a novel by Mary Shelley. Sorry. First and the foremost, let's start with a hint of autobiographical element in the novel when it comes to Mary Shelley's life. Of course, as a writer, she came from a very famous family. Her father was William Golding, and her mother, of course, Mary Wollstonecraft, and her husband, P.B. Shelley. But of course, at a very young age, she lost her mother. Then she was married to P.B. Shelley, but she was the second wife of Shelley, and most importantly, she had a lot of biological challenges when it came to giving birth to a child. So it is said that she underwent a lot of miscarriages. She could not she could not somehow uh, give birth to a child, and somehow this led to a very traumatic life. She had a very traumatic life in this front, and this uh, difficult relationship between the creation and the creator, the child and the mother, can be seen in the story, in the novel itself, where the relationship between the creation, that is the creature, the so called monster, and Victor Frankenstein, the creator, is concerned. So he was like a mother to the creature. He created the creature, but somehow when the creation process finished, when it ended and the end result was in front of him, he could not believe his eyes, that he had created something so heinous, because as we already discussed in class, that the monster, the so-called monster, was created by assembling body parts of human beings. So naturally, the physical outcome was not a very pleasant looking one. So Victor ran away from there, completely stunned, shocked, leaving the creature to survive on its own. One should remember that the creature was like a newborn baby, a newborn infant who needed a mother's love, nurturing, and caring, that was deprived to the creature. So that is how the relationship, the difficult relationship that she had when it came to that Mary Shelley had when it came to becoming a mother, can be reflected, can be seen in the tumultuous relationship of the creator and the creation, the parent and the child in the novel. So that is a small uh, part about Mary Shelley that needed to be talked about. Anyways, now we come to the subtitle, Modern Prometheus. Who was Prometheus? So, according to Greek mythology, he was a titan, and a titan is one of the 12th gods of Mount Olympus. So, Prometheus was an intelligent, a very witty titan, and uh, his downfall happened when he defied the gods and stole fire from the gods and handed over to human beings. Now, this defiance angered the gods to such an extent that they punished Prometheus by tying him to a rock, slitting off his stomach so that the eagles could eat his liver. And the most painful thing out here is that Prometheus had not died. So when his organs were being eaten up, he could actually feel the pain, the brutal pain that he was undergoing. So this shows this, how can this be related to the novel, is our young protagonist Victor Frankenstein himself was a scientist, and his hunger for knowledge, his over ambition at times when it came to knowledge, when it came to invention, creation, led to his debacle, led to his losing so many people, loved ones in his life, just like Prometheus lost his life because of his intelligence, because of his quote unquote over smartness. So, this is how the subtitle is related to the main plot of the novel. Now, the third thing to discuss is the narrative technique that I have constantly repeated in the classroom lecture. So, there are three characters in the novel who are narrating the story, the plot. The plot moves according to the narration of these three narrators in particular junctures of the novel. So the novel opens with this letter that is written to Margaret Saville, who stays in London, from Captain Robert Walton. So we come to know that Captain Robert Walton is an explorer who happens to write to his sister. He and his crew is moving towards the North Pole, and he frequently writes to his beloved sister who happens to reside in London. So, so the first part of the narration is in an epistolary form. Epistolary form means when the plot of the novel moves forward through the communication of the characters in the form of letters that they send to each other. So the first portion of the novel is an epistolary form, and Robert Walton is writing to his sister. And in one of the letters, he mentions that how his crew included, has saved a man in a very wretched condition. And later on, he reveals that the man's name is Victor Frankenstein. So, the second part of the novel is the narration from the point of view of Victor. Victor is the first person narrator, and he narrates his life story, how he belonged to Geneva. He came from a very illustrious family in Geneva. How he lost his mother, and how his best friend Elizabeth Lavanza later on went on to become his fiance, and he had a friend named Henry Clerval. So these were the people that he was related to, and he had two brothers. So later on, it is he mentions that how he decided to create something, as he was extremely interested in science as a young university student. So he decided to create something, and we already know he ended up creating this heinous looking, so called heinous looking creature, uh, and from whom he ran away. So then he reveals, as the story progresses, we come to know that uh, his brother William has been murdered, and the blame goes on to Justin Moritz, the housekeeper, the house staff. But later on, of course, his the so-called abandoned progeny, the monster and him meets finally, and then the monster uh, reveals his part of the story. So, this journey from a creature to a monster is revealed in the monsters or the creature's perspective. The when the creature is the first person narrative. So his story begins, of course, from the time when he was created, as our life starts. All of our life starts with our birth. Our story begins with our birth. So monsters' birth happened, of course, in Victor's quarters in the university. So Monster narrates how he felt abandoned when Victor left him. He was sick, hungry, and everywhere he went, people would be scared of him. People would want to run away from him. Nobody accepted him, and the monster could not make out why. Why was he being um, ill treated? Until, of course, in the reflection of water and in an unfortunate manner, he comes across, he sees a reflection of himself and how physically distorted a creature he is, so different from the rest of the world, so different from the so ugly from the standard of beauty that the society or the world upholds. Nevertheless, then there is the important meeting with the De Lacy family. When the monster is running through the woods, he comes across this small hut, and there, of course, later on, through his observation from far away, he comes to know that they have also been ostracized from society. And monster, or the creature, it is mentioned that he narrates how he starts to relationship with the father, because the father is visually impaired. He is a blind person. So being a blind person, the father does not judge the physical appearance of the monster. That is how he becomes very, very friendly with the father. But the small, very limited amount of happiness that the creature was getting from this interaction, this heart to heart interaction, this human interaction from the from the old man, from Mr. De Lacy, comes to a halt when one day the daughter and the son, who goes out to work daily, comes back and sees the monster, and just harshly makes him leave the place, and they too judge him from his physical appearance like everybody in society. So that is how the monster narrates to Victor how he ended up uh, being angry with the world, with society. He ended up killing a young innocent child, and all the blame he puts on Victor. And he also wants Victor to create a company for the monster. However, Victor denies. He declines this. He totally declines this deal. He rejects the idea of creating a female creature like the monster, because that would relate to a creation of many more monsters, like the one that is standing in front of him. So from that time onwards, it becomes very bitter. The creator and the creation becomes bitter. By this time, he has already killed or murdered William, young brother of Victor Frankenstein. So this is how the first part of the first mean the two parts of the narration, the third part of the narration ends. First is by Robert Walton, then you have Victor's narration, and then you have the monster's narration, which is followed by Victor again talking to Robert Walton, and how he tells him that the monster had warned him that he would pay more heavy prices, and leads to the death of his fiancée Elizabeth on their wedding night. It is almost like the monster does not want Victor to have a partner, because simply because Victor denied a partner, a female partner, to the monster.